Hi, this is Dr. B, and this video is on document design, but it's what I like to call what are the features of a technical document. So when we're thinking about designing a document, we need to think of it in terms of our reader. So we need to think about what are the elements of document design and why do we have them? Like what are they doing for our reader? When we structure, design, and organize a document, we're making specific design choices that help our reader in some way. And so this is document design overview, but I always call it the features of a technical document. Okay, so the purpose of technical and professional documents, it doesn't matter what kind of document it is, whether it's a proposal, a presentation, a report, an email, a memo, you name it. If we're writing a professional document or a technical document for a reader, then and it doesn't matter. It could even be a written document, or it could be a visual one, like slides, or it could be something even oral, like a podcast. Any kind of document that we're creating to communicate to a reader, the purposes of them is that we are trying to help a reader make a decision, complete a task, solve a problem. Even if they're information seeking, they have their own motivations for seeking out that information. I mean, very rarely in the professional world do we just read for information. Like, for example, if I'm reading a research article, it's because I'm trying to do something with that information. So we want to create documents that are actionable. We want to think of our reader, they're very busy, but they're also very active. And we may not know all their motivations for reading our document, but we want to design the document in a way that accommodates a busy reader who is actively trying to do something with our document. Okay, so again, our reader is active and not passive. And this is one of the biggest differences in technical and professional writing. We don't have a leisurely reader. We have someone who's actively seeking out information and trying to do something, and they're reading in a different way. And so we have to design our documents in a different way. Okay, so here are the features of a technical document. First of all, we have meaningful design. So we don't, aesthetics are important, but we aren't just designing to make something look good. We are trying to create usable and accessible documents that our readers can actually use or do something with, and that is relevant and meaningful to them in some way. So all of our choices are rhetorical. It's not just what we want to do with our document, and it's, a lot of times if you have a question like, should this be, what font should this be? Or should this be a numbered list or a bulleted list? Or should this be in a table or should it be in a list? Think about your reader and what they're doing with the document, and that will help you make good decisions. Okay, so again, a busy reader uses a different style of reading than a leisurely reader. So I know that I love to go home, kick off my shoes, and lay down to read on my Kindle. And it doesn't really matter if I lose my place or have to reread something, or if I get interrupted a million times, because I'm reading leisurely. But when I'm at work as a professional, I have a completely different style of reading. And so I'm busy, I'm usually skimming or something, I'm looking for something, I'm trying to do something. I have a lot of things going on around me that are interrupting my attention, and that can be frustrating. And so because we have a different kind of reader and a different style of reading, we want to design our documents differently to accommodate that style of reading. Okay. So a lot of us tend to write or design for deep readers, and deep reading is only one style of reading. Before we even get to deep reading, we have choose your own adventure and skimming. So most professional readers are going to read a document multiple times. The first time they look at it, they're probably going to sort of choose their own adventure. They're going to kind of skip around the document to see what information is in it, and they're looking for specific types of information. And then they might skim that section just to kind of get the lay of the land, see what information is in that section. Or they might do something like they might skim the whole document just to get an idea of what's in it, and then they might, skip to a specific section. So we need to be able to, it's not just how we write it in terms of the content, we then want to apply design to the content that enables this choose your own adventure, skipping around type of reading style, and skimming, which is a very shallow, quick type of reading. And then, if we're lucky and they like what they see, they might at some point then deep read. But when I'm reading a research article, I rarely ever deep read. I mean, I might decide after skimming that something isn't really what I wanted, and I don't have time to read it. Or I might just read one section in depth because it has the information I need. I don't often read everything very deeply, only when I really want to learn more about that research or really sit with those ideas and think about them in a deep way would I deep read. But a lot of the reading that I do as a researcher and a professional is choose your own adventure and skimming. Okay. So again, when someone's choosing their own adventure, what I mean by that is that they're skipping around to locate relevant information. This is one of the ways that we can accommodate different readers. We often have multiple readers of the same document. So especially for something like a proposal or report, we can have, a lot of different kinds of readers reading our document, and they each have different needs. And how do we accommodate all those needs? How do we, especially if those needs might be competing? We might have one reader who wants to know more about our budget. Another reader might, want to know more about our research methods. This is the same, like with peer reviewers, each peer reviewer may have something different that they're looking for. So how can we anticipate all of these different people's needs, and how do we accommodate them? We do that through design. So when we apply design, readers can use, our design as a signpost to find the information that they're looking for. And then they're like, this is the section I need. I'm just going to skip to that section and read it. Skimming is that kind of really shallow style of reading where someone really quickly kind of reads, but they're not getting necessarily all of the information. When we design for a skimmer, we want to make sure that the most important information occurs earlier in a section, and we want to make sure that it's styled in such a way that it pops out. So one of the reasons we use things like emphasis or lists is that we can put the most information, we can style or design the most important information in a way that's going to stand out to a skimmer and help them get that information very quickly. But because a skimmer is reading very quickly, their reading comprehension is much lower. So they need help processing information quickly and remembering what they just read. Okay, so how do we do that then? How do we accommodate all these different styles of reading? And that's through design. So first, we want to apply structure and navigation to our technical document. No matter what kind of document it is, we want to make sure that it's highly structured and that people can, they know what's in it and they can find that information. So we want to provide a roadmap to that information. And there are a lot of different ways to do that depending on the kind of document. A really easy one is, to break the document up into sections. So formal reports and formal proposals will often have section headers. Even within a single document, a shorter document, you can use headings to break long documents up into sections, and you can use subheadings to break those sections up into subsections. So creating these different sections and applying a structure to the document, helps accommodate these styles of reading. Navigational elements, things like tables of contents, page numbers, running headers, this also helps readers to locate information. And of course, these are things that we apply after we've written. We've written the main, content. Now we want to go in and apply this design, overlay it onto the content. In terms of organization, sometimes we tend to write our ideas down as they come to us. And the way we think isn't necessarily going to accommodate the way our reader reads. And so we want to have a clear organization within the document and within sections. I like to use what I call the forecast, expand, summarize method, which is priority information occurs earlier and less important information later. But also I kind of tell underneath the heading, I'll tell the reader what's coming up in this section, then I'll expand on it, and then I'll kind of wrap it up. So this is also tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. And this, helps a skimmer, especially, there's a targeted redundancy where you're making sure to reiterate the important points, But also for someone who's choosing their own adventure, if I know the first paragraph under every heading kind of tells me more about that section, I can just read that paragraph and determine if I want to read the rest of the section or not. You also want to create what I call an information hierarchy. A hierarchy means that there are some things that are more important than others. You might have a lot of really good information in a document, but not everything is equally important. So we want to direct the reader's attention to the most important information, and we want to make sure that the least important information doesn't detract from that important information. So we're going to use design elements to make important information easy to spot and make sure that it's different formatting from the least important information, so that's not as distracting. And this is going to help readers with different information seeking goals find what they're looking for. So we want to make the most important information easy to spot. Okay, you can create emphasis, for example. We also want to create similar categories of information and give them similar formatting. So you have to think about sorting the information in your document into categories, and similar categories get similar formatting. This is why all heading 1s have the same formatting and all heading 2s have the same formatting, but heading 2 looks different from heading 1. Heading 1 is one type of information and heading 2 is different type of information. So different categories of information get different formatting. And if we're consistent throughout our document, then our reader can learn the design and they can find information this way if they're sighted, especially. But like, say there's a type of information in your document, like if you always italicize what's important, I just have to look for the italics, and that's a lot quicker than reading to find the information, right? You can spot design before you read the words, and that can help a skimming reader or a choose your own adventure find what they're looking for if you have a consistent information hierarchy design. And there are a lot of different ways to do this. One way is obviously using headings and then using different levels of headings. So all heading 1s, might be formatted in one way, and then all the heading 2s are formatted differently, and all the heading 3s are formatted a different way. And that's why we do this, is those headings then act as labels for the sections, or they're like a roadmap for the content. And if you, like I said, if they're consistent, you can just start spotting the design before you have to read. You can use text formatting like bolding, italics, underlining, or highlighting to create emphasis, but whatever you choose, be consistent. And of course, you can also use organization. More important information should occur earlier in a document or earlier in a section. Something like that can help create information hierarchy. There are a lot of different ways of doing it, but just think, what's the most important information in this document? How can I use design to help my reader find it? Or what's similar types of information in this document? How can I format them similarly? You also want to create information chunking, and this is essentially creating digestible bites of information. So this is maybe a little bit different than other styles of writing, but we pay attention to, for example, how long is the document, how long is this section, how long is this paragraph. And we want to make sure that we're creating smaller chunks of information. Think of it like, if you're really hungry, you may want to shove a whole hamburger into your mouth, but that's not a good idea. You want to take small bites of a large hamburger. So same thing with a document. Our reader needs smaller bites of information. So we might create smaller paragraphs and break up sections. This is one of the reasons why you see block style used a lot in professional writing. In more academic writing, we've been taught to do a lot of, double spacing, and sometimes you might have, a publisher, always follow the style guide. But a lot of times you'll see things, once they're published, they look a little bit different. So you might be asked to write a paper double spaced, but then when it's published in the journal, it's block style. And that's because our reader is very busy, right? And block style is single spacing between paragraphs and double spacing between. This creates a nice chunk of information rather than having the paragraphs spread out so much on the page. We can create shorter paragraphs. We don't want to obsess too much about, where should I start and end a paragraph. Sometimes you just have a really long paragraph and you need to break it up. Lists also help to create chunks of information. So if you write something out as a paragraph, it could take up more space. If it can logically be formatted as a list, then it's a little bit easier and quicker to read for your reader. Tables and charts, anytime you can use, tables are great at organizing information and, concisely. Sometimes you can put a lot of information in one page using a table. If you have a sighted person, then charts and graphs, any kind of visual, can convey a lot of information in a very concise way. So a lot of different ways to chunk information depending on, your reader in the situation. Using a combination of visuals and text in technical documents also helps to convey information concisely and quickly, like I just said. So again, for many users, if they're sighted or they don't have a visual processing disorder, visuals can communicate information very, very quickly and can arrange a lot of information on the page. So think about, is there information in your document that could be sort of converted into a visual? It also helps with emphasis, because if you're saying something in the text and then there's also a visual that conveys the same information, then you're emphasizing something over and over again, and a busy reader is going to get that point more easily. So there are a lot of visuals that you could use. You could use images, for example, graphs or charts, infographics, design elements, like things like colors or icons or symbols. It really depends on what it's doing in the document. So the idea is not just to choose it for aesthetic reasons, but choose it because it's performing this function of conveying information. The big thing here is that it's a combination of visuals and text. Visuals by themselves it's not a good idea to just use a visual by itself for a lot of reasons. One, they can be misinterpreted. We do not live in a purely visual communication culture. So a lot of different people can look at the same visual and come to different conclusions. So we want to make sure that we're framing and introducing that in a way that they're interpreting it the way we want them to, that supports whatever we're trying to say. The second is, if you have a really busy reader, they might just looking at the figure and go, what am I looking at? I don't even know what I'm supposed to look at. So making sure we're discussing the main point in the text that introduces the figure, or the caption of the figure, it directs the attention of that busy reader so they're not wasting time. And again, it helps with emphasis and targeted redundancy. Okay, so this is just a quick summary of the features of a technical document, no matter what you're writing, okay, whether it's proposal, report, or presentation, whether it's visual or textual. Think about the design as this, structural element, right? You want to create structure and navigation. You want to create an information hierarchy. You want to create information chunking. You want to use a combination of visuals and text, and you want to make sure that you have a meaningful design that accommodates different styles of reading. But if you have any questions, you can hit me up on the discussion forums or send me an email, or we could meet in office hours. Thank you.